Well, morning, everyone. I think we should get rolling along here with respect to what's happening for today. Got a few developments this morning. I have this habit of whenever it comes to dealing with SPC, every time I put up a post, usually within about 15-20 minutes, they wind up changing the risk area. It took a little bit longer this morning, but it still wound up happening. I've had it happen where I've actually literally just published it, and seconds later they change the map, and I have to go back and redo everything. So here's what's happening this morning. Minor but important adjustments here. First off, they added this just to briefly address the plains and the upper Mississippi Valley. We do have a moderate risk now that is being indicated for parts of northeast Kansas, across northern Missouri, southern Iowa, and western Illinois. And this is we were seeing a series of systems that are basically breaking off from the deep trough out in the west, and it's shooting these systems eastward. So that's causing the frontal boundary to basically buckle. And every time one of these waves comes along, of course, we're going to be dealing with some showers and thunderstorms. And we have to address where the warm sector is going to be, because that's going to be hugely important. And SPC is also expanded and pushed the area of enhanced risk east into New Jersey, almost touching, but not quite, to New York City. But the slight risk has been pushed eastward, and so has the marginal risk into central Long Island. It's going to be very, very tight there with that warm sector, where that warm front's going to be, with low 60s on one side and 70s and low 80s on the other. And of course, the daytime heating is going to be stronger even further to the south. I'm going to wipe out the radar in the background in a moment so you can take a better look at the risk area on a tighter view. I want to bring up the northeast radar, which is a little bit behind, but the local radars, when I pull them up, will catch up. But you see the general flavor of this. Overrunning rains in upstate New York and moving into New England. And then you've got this arm that extends southward with some downpours and some thunderstorms that are moving through southern Delaware now, and those are headed east. Now, you're not going to really see too much in terms of severity with this first batch, other than rain. And maybe there will be some heavy downpours that will move through. David DeBoer, I think you said you had about a quick quarter of an inch when that band went by out your way. Now, there's another band that's out to the west in Pennsylvania. I'd probably keep a closer eye on that to see what that does as we move through the rest of this morning and into this afternoon. And there's probably going to be kind of a tail of thunderstorms that develops late this afternoon and evening. And I think out of that's where we're going to wind up seeing the severe weather evolve from. So let me get the open window here. Let's open the window capture. Okay. Hope everybody had a good holiday, by the way. Uh, First off, looking at the temperatures this morning, and I've got the radar echoes hooked up there. I'm going to take those off so that we could see that a bit better. And let me just highlight the boundaries so we can see the state lines. There we go. So that comes out a bit better here. And counties, that always helps. And let's see if we can make this just a little bit darker. Okay, I think that's probably a bit better. Whoops. And I have this set so that, the warnings can come up fairly quickly. So here's what it looks like with that first band. You can see the heavier cells down in this area. We've got a special marine warning that was posted here for Delaware Bay and out of the waters off of Cape May. So this lead area, again, I don't expect that to do very much. And then we'll just keep an eye on what's going on back in through Pennsylvania. There are some downpours here moving through Tioga, Lycoming, Clinton, down toward not quite to Harrisburg, but the southern end gets pretty close. So this area in north central PA, and then of course you've got these streaky rains that are running up in parts of Connecticut and up through upstate New York, where it becomes a bit more solid and you're getting into a bit more overrunning here. And the temperatures, which I'm going to put up now, let's get the radar off. And I had the temps on. Here we go. We'll put the temps back on. And here it. Okay, so here's the impact. Obviously, the temperatures that you're seeing here are being impacted by cloud cover and also whether it's raining or not. So where you've got rain coming down, you actually have some temperatures down in the upper 50s, like you see here in northeastern Pennsylvania. But most of the temperatures are in the low and middle 60s. You've got some 70-degree readings along the shore. So it's probably from the temperature standpoint, you're going to want to see these numbers get into the 70s. And even at this stage, still only in the low to mid 70s across Maryland and Virginia. So it's a matter of getting this first batch out, and then you have to grind out the daytime heating. And where you're getting the daytime heating, of course, is down in the south where there aren't going to be any thunderstorms. These are 9 a.m. temperatures, by the way. It's already in the upper 80s. We've got Richmond, Georgia is already at 90. There are a few 90-degree readings already popping up here. 91 at Savannah at these, again, 9 o'clock obs. You got to wonder whether some of these places are going to wind up going over 100 today with sunshine all day long. The areas in southeastern Georgia and in South Carolina, coastal South Carolina in particular, these are the areas that have really been getting very hot. Areas north and west have been a little bit better with readings. You get up into northern Georgia and you're seeing upper 70s and low 80s, which is really a bit much more manageable. The upper ridge is causing all this, and of course we're near that boundary zone, and this is why it's important to see how much heating goes on even that far south. It does give you a good idea of the strength of the ridge, and it's going to be a matter of getting warm sectored or not, which is always a tough call. Here's the satellite loop. I'm going to freshen it up just a little bit here, and of course the system, the first one coming eastward, you can actually see these break off on the loop. The low is still the upper low and the trough still well to the west there out in the western plains, just kind of spinning away, shoots out pieces. The first piece moving across the northeast today. You have a second piece that's going to come through for later tomorrow night, and then of course finally the last piece will come in on Thursday, and that will drive the all of this out of here. It's also, we're seeing this pattern change that's underway because we're going to be seeing the trough in the west relaxing in the next several days and going into the weekend. So we're going to shift the trough to the east, and it will bring cold fronts swinging down from the northwest. So how much, you probably won't be able to get too much out of that in terms of rain threats, although they'll have to have them in there from time to time. But I don't think we're going to be dealing with any kind of onshore flow scenarios, which is a good thing, other than what we're seeing today and whatever's left of it during tomorrow and going into Thursday. So again, here's the risk area, spc.noaa.gov. Use the side menu updates every couple of minutes. Every time they send out a discussion or a new watch, it'll go up on the sideboard. And they are, so far at least, they're not really talking about anything in our neck of the woods. The last update they sent out was 53 minutes ago. Just want to see. I know, Robert, you asked about whether they had a severe, any kind of watch up for in Ohio yet last night. Unfortunately, I can't go back far enough to see if that is the case on this board. I'm sure there's some kind of archive in here where we could look, but I just haven't had a chance to do that. The risk area, let's just so you can see it a bit better here. Here's what it looks like on SPC side, so you can see with the radar echoes off. So you got your enhanced risk really covering just about all of Pennsylvania, except maybe the extreme north and the extreme southwest. but that enhanced pushes in to northern New Jersey, down to about Trenton, and then south and west of there into northern Delaware. The slight risk makes it to New York City and western Long Island and southernmost areas of the Hudson Valley, with the marginal risk central Long Island to just about maybe a little bit north of Route 84 into Dutchess County and in southwest Connecticut. So it looks pretty busy. And the slight risk on the southern end gets down into Maryland and Delaware. Marginal risk from central Delmarva northwest. And then you can see the line that cuts across southern Virginia and all of the southeast. No thunderstorm risk at all today. Just a very, very quiet day indeed. And there's your moderate risk with the second area. All right, here's the local radar from Upton. And the last frame on this is at 10:03. You've got this first band coming through with some rain and showers arriving pretty much on time. Looks like it's concentrated in New Jersey from Route 78 on south to south of 195. And I'll move it over. We'll go to the Fort Dix radar now as we go a bit further south. And there's the look from Mount Holly, and there's your strong storm cells that are down off the coast of Delaware Bay in that special marine warning. A few heavier downpours and some of the yellows that are showing up there between Philadelphia and Trenton, right along 195. Looks like there's a heavier band of rain moving from west to east, and then another band coming out of eastern Pennsylvania that is moving eastward. Further south, we can go to the Dover radar. Okay, and this will give us a perspective down into Maryland, and some heavier cells as you. I can't read what those towns are there, but certainly north and west of Norfolk, you've got a few embedded heavier downpours there. Looks like the cell as the area that's down in the Delmarva Peninsula is not especially strong, and we've got some scattered cells approaching between routes 83 and route 70 near Westminster in Maryland that are moving southeastward. And we can take a look to, let's go to the Binghamton radar. The last frame on this is 10:08, so it's only about 3 minutes old. Let's go to Binghamton and see what they see. And you've got more of your overrunning rain up to the north. And here's your stuff back from Williamsport toward about State College. So we'll keep an eye on that as it moves eastward. You notice that the radar does have more of an overrunning look to it this morning as opposed to the more convective look that you're likely to see later today. So the latest HRRR is probably a good one. We got the 12Z, which I'm glad because that goes out far a ways here. And it takes us deeper into time. So here's this morning. Okay, one of the things I always advise everybody to do is kind of look at what's on the radar and look at what the model's doing to see if they match up pretty well, and that'll at least give you an idea. I mean, it's not a bad match. It seems to be missing a little bit about what's out in PA to the west. It's got this area to the east, shows the idea of weakening, might actually be a little bit overdone here. And that moves through and basically weakens as it moves eastward. And now we'll see what it does convectively. Now, this is the stuff for late this afternoon and this evening where you're going to wind up seeing some of these storms becoming strong or possibly severe. It doesn't have the most linear looking line. It's sort of this broken line that runs east-west. From just south of Boston, across southern New England, into the Hudson Valley, and then it goes out. So, I don't know, it's just not the most impressive looking system on the HRRR. But the new NAM is in, so we can at least see its judgment of all of this. I gotta like how you get these with these mesoscale models that we've been dealing with these convective events lately, and how each one of them has a completely different view of what's going to happen. And none of them have turned out to be right. But here's how the NAM sees it for this first area, which it sort of has the same idea where it weakens it. And now here come your cells a little later this evening and into tonight, into the first part of tonight. This looks like, really kind of hits Pennsylvania hard, which is where your harder, which is where your max risk area is. It's not really showing very much, moving much further south of there, but I would be really careful with coming to any specific conclusions with these with the models with respect to the severe weather, because they've just done such a god awful job with everything. Now here's your 700 millibarges. I always like to look at this. You've got this jet streak that's coming through this morning, and it's this very narrow streak of strong winds in the upper atmosphere, but I don't think it's really enough to create any kind of convective stuff that's worth taking seriously. But here's where we go into late this afternoon and this evening, across Pennsylvania and into parts of New Jersey. You're seeing these jet streaks with strong upper air winds at 10,000 feet of 50, 60, and even some 70 knot wind barbs. So there's certainly enough wind shear here that we're seeing that you could wind up with a bit of rotation developing in some of the stronger cells. SPC seems to be playing on the idea that hail and damaging winds is the bigger risk here as opposed to tornadoes. Although they do mention that a few spin-ups not out of the question. All right, so where are we going through all of this going forward? Is, as we said, it's a series of these waves that are moving eastward, and we have the frontal boundary literally on top of us. It's running right across Pennsylvania and New Jersey. So it's a matter of as each low approaches, the warm sector is going to try to push northward, which is what the NAM is showing. The NAM would argue that the warm sector actually gets north of Long Island into maybe central Connecticut and down and through Rhode Island. So it's going to be important to see what we wind up doing this afternoon with respect to any kind of daytime heating, who gets what, and how high do the temperatures get. Now here are your storms for tonight. Meanwhile, your second wave is getting ejected east, and that comes in for Wednesday. Now here we have another threat for storms late tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening, and I think we would guess that SPC is likely to adjust their risk areas for tomorrow. And then finally, although it's not going out far enough here, you've got wave number 3, and the northern part of the jet is getting involved here. So you see there's a low that pops up north of Lake Huron. So that's going to be your next cold front. Switching over to the GFS. Now there it is. You get a low that does come out of the southern plains and runs out northeastward for Thursday and Thursday night. Thursday, I think, is the one day where we wind up seeing the warmest temperatures getting the furthest north. But, one of the things I want to point out is that back not too many days ago, when people were looking at the long range and what was going to be going on, everybody was looking at all these 90s being pushed up the coast. And I saw a few people talking about 100-degree readings. It's another example of how you got to really be careful. Models love to pop these ridges up sometimes, and then they end up being flatter because they're not seeing the depth of the troughs that are coming along and basically denting those upper highs and weakening them. So the heat has been confined to the southeast, but we're not seeing that ridge wholesale build up the east coast. So 80s, yeah, 90s, I don't know, maybe some places get up close to 90, but the 100-degree temperatures that some folks were opining on was just not really there in my view. So Wednesday night into Thursday morning, again, where's the warm sector going to set up for that? But I think we're probably going to have SPC moving risk around, and then here we go Thursday night into Friday morning. You get this cold front to work on through, and now we've got this drier air that comes down from the north. And here's where we talk about that whole pattern change that is underway. Got to get, the main aim here has been to get rid of that trough, that deep, deep trough in the west. And you see it here going back to the weekend. Deep trough in the west, ridge in the east, another big upper low. And this is the last one, the fourth in the series. And this is the last one that is coming out. And here's where your change happens. Of course, you've got this vortex. Take a look at what's going on up in the middle of the picture, all the way up close to the top. There's an upper low in north central Canada. That strengthens and drops southeastward. So that basically gets everything moving along. You also have, by the way, a cutoff low here forming in the Aleutians and dropping down near 160, which is the longitude of Hawaii. And that pops a ridge up closer to the west coast and into northwest Canada. So that finally gets that trough out of there in the west. There's a little bit of residual troughing left in Southern California and offshore, but that just kind of gets left behind. So the folks in the plains and in the Rockies, after this one last push that's going on from now into over the next couple of days, once that gets out of the way, you do get this nice ridge to build. And of course, the offset to that is that you do actually have a fairly deep vortex there in eastern Canada that moves into northern New England. And that brings down cooler air. It brings air masses down from the north. And we obviously can't get hot in a situation like that. After Thursday, we're going to cool off nicely, I think, going into the weekend. The only question would be, I guess, timing of fronts coming down in that northwest flow and whether we could see some showers with that. You might think about that for possibly on Sunday at some point. I'm not 100% sold. Sometimes you can get these things to come through relatively dry, and most of the shower activity is spent well up to the north and west of the coast, but we'll see. And going forward, flat flow to some ridging there in the west keeps things quiet there. Severe weather in general, I think, will relax certainly across the Midwest and back over through the plains. Longer term for us, the trough wants to stay in the east through next week. And how long does it stay there is going to be an important question in terms of how the weather plays out during the first half of the month of June. This to me would suggest that it does look overall a bit cooler than average for the Northeast down into the Mid-Atlantic states, and also you can't really get hot here in a situation like this. Yeah, you could have a day or so in between, as the next cold front approaches, where temperatures could spike up. But that would be the limit. That would be it. You can't string days and days of hot weather in a situation like this. Also, this is also going to be great news for the southeast because, of course, that ridge. While all we talk about everything that's going on in the west, we also see the demise of the ridge in the southeast. It gets flattened out by the trough in the east. It drops down into the Gulf of Mexico and sits there. And now you've got another trough coming into play later in the weekend. So after Friday, we should start to see the really extreme temperatures in the southeast go away. They may actually go away a bit sooner than that as this trough in the east takes hold. And you're going to get some genuine relief making it pretty far south in this pattern. The other thing I would say is with hurricane season starting on June 1st, of course, and we've already seen our first named storm. The one thing I would point out is that the pressures in the Gulf of Mexico down in the Caribbean look like they're probably going to be climbing a bit because the upper high is getting pushed further and further south with this trough along the east coast. So I wonder if that just winds up, that one area that you get development this time of year usually is in the Northwest Caribbean. There's kind of a flat up ridging that's going across the Atlantic. So I'm not really seeing anything here that would suggest that something could come out of there in the early part of the month of June. Of course, those things can change, but at least based on what I'm looking at right now, it would seem to me that at least the first week or so of June, we're not going to have to worry about or see any kind of tropical storm development in the climatologically favored areas. Okay, nice to have the seven of you on board. Joyce Mack, Scott Briller, David Schwartz, David DeBoer, Robert Brown. You're all on here. Did I get everybody? Let's see. I think I did. If I left you out, I'm sorry, but I'm judging from my quick run through of everyone here. I think we're good. Water temperature, Joyce, at 57. Scott, at 57 in Wildwood. Yeah, that's just wrong. I'm not doing it. I don't do those things. For me, it's got to be up at about 75. So, which kind of confines me to the last 2 weeks of August and the first 2 week or so of September that I will actually go in the ocean. Much cooler today, Joyce Mack, definitely with that bit more of the onshore flow. All right, Scott, you want me to pull up the? I don't know how much we're going to get to see out of that, but let's pull up the Atlantic satellite. And we do have one area of interest, by the way, that's on the Pacific side, but it's been around for the last 8 or 9 days and it hasn't developed yet. And you wonder after a while where it's going to develop at all. Hurricane Center does mention it, but only with a 10% chance. You can see it there with the X, and then they got nothing on the. Well, they're not putting out outlooks on the Atlantic side unless there's a system in play, which there isn't. Okay, so here's the wide Atlantic view. Let's see what we got. So here comes the visible shot. Looks like a little bit of dust there going across. You can see that. Right, and well, sometimes that could. I don't know if that's dust or if that's the actual reflection of the light. Sometimes you see the sunlight actually getting reflected off the satellite, but I'm not sure if that is the case. There's not a. I'm not really seeing a whole lot with respect to African dust. I got to read their discussion to see exactly what they're looking at because they know this better than I do. You do have disturbed weather across the central Caribbean. It's actually a fairly extensive area, but it's very disorganized. You'll notice that the clouds are a lot of the higher cloud tops are blowing from west to east. So whenever you see that, you're looking at shear. So you've got some strong upper level winds there. This might be an area where something would try to develop. Now let's watch to see if this area persists over the next week or so, if anything's going to come out of it. But right now, if you look at it, the winds are just too strong up across the Caribbean for tropical storm development. Even in the favored area, there's almost always shear in the eastern Caribbean. There are rare moments where the shear there disappears, and that usually is in situations when we've seen major hurricanes in the eastern Caribbean. But a lot of times you don't see them in that area because of the fact that there's this sort of semi-permanent uh, area of strong winds that come off of South America and tend to blow through the eastern part of the islands there. I'm sorry, blow through the Leeward and I meant to say the Leeward and Windward Islands. Um, so that sort of creates this zone where you've got like a semi-permanent area of shear that weaken systems as they move westward. Now, sometimes what happens is that as you get a strong enough system to move westward, you wind up seeing those the features that are causing the strong winds in the Eastern Caribbean to just kind of either weaken or they move westward. You get an upper low that just starts to migrate westward with it. So it creates a more favorable environment going forward as the system approaches. But for now, it's just too darn early for anything to happen. Izzy D just got soaked. And you had to run in from doing inspections to a rental place back to your dorm. No Joyce, no party. Good. That's good to hear. No party, Izzy. We don't want parties. So I got the sun out here, by the way, where I am in central Long Island. So it's been popping in and out. I wonder whether that's just kind of indicating that first area is weakening and moving right along. So wait till later this afternoon. We'll see how the radars check out, and we'll keep on track to see what SPC has to say. Are they going to put up watch boxes up? I don't know. I don't like to second guess them because they've got so much in front of them and that they can they can look at that. they're far they're far better equipped and far smarter than I am when it comes to these sorts of things. I need to feed my tomato plants and pepper plants when you get home tonight. The rain will help the plant food get into the roots. Yeah, I have 3 avocado trees in my outside now on the deck. I have them potted because I have to bring them in the wintertime. I grew them from pits, and yeah, I also did the same thing. I fed them and gave them some water. I wasn't gonna. It was so dry out here, with all the sunshine we had. It really dries things out fairly quickly. So it was probably a good idea to give them some water. Tornado 60 yesterday, and temperature wise, I think I'm at 64 at the moment. Let's just see. SPC's got their reports up. Okay, you know what? I lost the link. I have SPC's page up. They took the summary page down, the daily summary page. So I don't know what the exact number was yesterday, but they periodically rotate these in and out during the day. I didn't bookmark the link, so I'll take a look a bit later. Let me just in case I did. I'm always doing things now and forgetting. Okay, let's see if I bookmarked it. Hang on. Scrolling away. And I'm going to have to get ready for work and get ready to hit the road. Let's see. You can see how much stuff I have bookmarked. I do not have it bookmarked. Okay, so I'll just have to. Hopefully they'll usually at some point during the day its daily count link appears, and then we'll see what the numbers are. Oh, Chuck Cardillo, you made it on board. Good for you. Just got back. We're all having a good day, and you just got on just as I'm about to sign off because we've been at it for 30 minutes. So look, regular schedule today. There's no Joe and Joe show tonight, by the way, because Joe is off. It's just me. So I really hope the severe weather doesn't get too out of control because I got 3 zones to do of weather. And when severe weather breaks and you're covering 3 zones, you're only one person with 2 hands, and you have to be at 3 places at once. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that if it's going to be severe weather, let it do it in one place at a time. First in New Jersey, then in Hudson Valley, and then on Long Island. I can have some of your water, Chuck, no matter how much sun, your ground refuses to dry up. Yeah, I know. It's that kind of year. If you're going to be north of the main boundary, of the frontal boundary, it's going to be problematic for you on the northern side of that. If you don't get warm sector, at least if you get warm sectored, your thunderstorm is confined to a smaller portion of the day, and that much of the day, at least, you've got some sun to dry things up a bit. But if you're north of it, you're talking about clouds, you're talking about overrunning rain that lasts for hours on end sometimes, and that could be a bit problematic. Okay, so look, regular live stream tonight will be at 6 o'clock. I'll have a couple of posts peppered on throughout the day, so keep an eye out for that, and we'll see you later. Thanks for being here this morning.